There are over 600 unique spells in Baldur's Gate 3. Some provide mobility, others just utility. But what if you wanted to use just one ability? Can you beat Baldur's Gate 3 using only throw? When I say only throw, I mean only throw. The rules of the challenge are simple. My 4 main characters will never use anything in the spellbook which is not throw, even when outside of combat. That includes things like jumping, reactions, and the Eldritch Knight's bound weapons. All banned. Items which require actions, like potions, scrolls, or lockpicks, are banned unless they're thrown. Which means yes, my bonus actions are entirely worthless. With the rules set in stone, let's move on to character creation. Because any racial spell, which is not a passive, cannot be used, and because I think they look funny, I went with a halfling barbarian. I also maxed out the strength for higher damage, and named our hero Bomb Trady. The challenge begins with the unending task of looting ammunition, because I always need to have something to throw at my enemies. The first battle was uneventful, but upon entering the second battle, I immediately realized my first pain point. Picking up items a second time is annoying. So I used imps as my ammunition and solved the problem by killing 2 imps with 1 imp, followed by tossing myself to the controls of the ship, where I learned that throwing myself can cause me to go prone and lose my turn. Lesson learned. I'll definitely never make that mistake again. That's called foreshadowing. We Titanicked the ship, woke up on a beach, and recruited Shadowheart. Together, we made some brains brain dead. I barely restrained myself from habitually using guidance, and because I like bad girls, I liberated Lae'zel, who was not even a party member yet, and she still killed a tiefling using the throw ability. Nice move, Lae'zel. Grandpa and the girls then made their way to the grove to buy the best ring in the game, and then beelined it to the goblins' camp. For the first time in 700 plus hours played, I didn't disguise myself as a drow to skip the dialogues. Turns out you can force the goblin to eat some warg dung instead. I can't really explain the shit-eating grin that my character had during the cutscene though. Upon arrival at the camp, I purchased the first weapon which makes this challenge even slightly bearable, the returning pike. A weapon which when thrown will automatically be sent back into your inventory, meaning for one of my party members I don't need to worry about holding on to 50 daggers at all times. With our average powered weapon in hand, we backtracked to free Withers from his tomb, picked up a dwarf hireling, and then reworked our companions' classes into fighters for the champion subclass and additional crit chance. We smashed a mirror for good luck, left the town in search of experience, and ran into the biggest challenge thus far, a 2-foot gap in the road. These gaps are the reason that I made my character a halfling. Halflings are extremely throwable. I cleared the gap and used the nearby waypoint to link the party back up. We then used our throwing skills to yeet some wood off of a trapped man and struggled to throw down a door. Up the road, a hyena exploded, granting us enough experience to reach level 4. The first big power spike for this build. All party members picked up the Tavern Brawler feat for a much needed damage boost on their throws, which instantly turned us from struggling to kill anything to absolutely decimating gnolls and snapping their necks. After a long day of travel, the party tried to get some much needed rest, but I woke up to find women fighting over me, fully confirming that this is indeed a fantasy world. We broke up their fight, and feeling overpowered, we traveled back to the goblins' camp to wipe out the goblin threats. Not because I wanted to be the good guy, I just found it fun to throw goblins. Finishing the leaders and every goblin nearby was enough to reach level 5 and unlock the extra attack passive, which allows us to throw twice per turn, effectively doubling our actions. Before moving to the Underdark, there was one final challenge left to conquer: the Hag. In a normal playthrough, the Hag is not that tough, but due to my rule set, there's a slight problem. I cannot jump the gap into the Hag's room. My characters also don't have enough strength to lift humans and throw them. The elixir of Hill Giant strength can only be drank and not thrown, so that doesn't work either. Only the halfling is light enough to be thrown into the Hag's room, so Bomb Trady will need to solo the Hag. You might be thinking, can't you just skip the Hag? It's not really a necessary encounter. And to that, all I have to say is, what would Brian Boitano do? He'd make a plan and he'd follow through. That's what Brian Boitano'd do. We pre-buffed by throwing a poison resistance elixir. Don't ask why that elixir works and others don't, because I don't know the answer. Additionally, I threw down a speed potion for a second action point and then initiated the fight. The Hag's first turn, she summons 4 illusions of herself, which all get a turn before I even get one, bringing me down to about half health. But on my turn, I just needed to throw one object at each illusion to finish them off. With the illusions down, the Hag tries to follow up with a magic trick where she pretends to be this girl, but I've already played the game before, so I already knew which girl she is. I continued tossing javelins at her, but it wasn't quite enough. She summoned 4 additional illusions. I attempted to finish her and failed, getting her down to just 3 health, which I thought would be enough and triggered the ending scene, but apparently not. Her clones then stunned me, ran up, and crit me, bringing me down to just 4 HP. I stood stun locked, but suddenly the Hag surrendered, which means that's a technical victory. I'll take it. She ripped out her hair and threw it at us. It's at that point I remembered my rule set and realized I can't even use the reward for doing this, because it's a consumable item. Moving on. With the Hag defeated, we regrouped and descended into the Underdark. Throwing magic petals allowed us to sneak into the Arcane Tower, and with a bit of skydiving, we're able to repower the elevator. Atop the tower, this robot hugged us and let us borrow his enchanted chair leg. Trust me, it makes sense. I still had one last item that I wanted to obtain in this area: the mithril armor from Grimforge. We Grand Theft Auto'd a boat, and with the power of gnome tossing, managed to traverse most of the way to the forge. Gathering the mithril ore was no problem. Reaching the forge, however, yeah, pretty far. I tried to build a bridge, but it didn't work. so I built a tower, and I just barely was able to get into throwing range. I descended the elevator, jumping for joy, but knowing I have no chance of actually beating this robot, I used bridge building to traverse the lava and retrieve my armor. And no, it's not cheating, because bridge building is not a spell in my spellbook, nor does it cost any action points to do this. With the Underdark's treasures pillaged, we ventured into the mountain pass. Fighting our way into the monastery boosted us to level 6, and allowed me to increase my strength ability score to 20, which is just enough to throw larger sized characters if needed. It also unlocked the chimpanzee throwing passive on my barbarian, so when I throw food such as a banana, it will actually blind the target for 2 turns, granting us some much needed utility. We still had one more task to do in the monastery. My queen Lae'zel wanted to meet her queen Vlaakith, who tasked us with entering the astral prism, where I was just barely in range to be thrown to the next platform. We spoke with a con artist who teleported our whole party back outside. Upon our return to the real world, we're met with betrayal. We threw stuff at them until they died, as it's still the only thing I'm allowed to do, and then I spent 10 minutes trying to find all of my weapons afterwards. I'm having so much fun. I snuck out the back door, fast traveled to the mountains, and made some undead dead to get to the Shadowlands. Once in the Shadowlands, a goblin came to greet us and escorted us to her people. I told these goblins I'd help them. I didn't. Using our newly acquired moon lantern, we booked it down the road to Moonrise Towers. Once inside, I decided to try things a little bit differently and assassinate everyone here to see if anything cool happens later in the story. Spoiler alert, nothing cool happened. But it did get us a level up, and it felt a lot easier to fight them all spread out like this, rather than in one big battle later on. 10 out of 10, would do again. With Moonrise entirely extinct, I got back to the main story, dispatched some ghosts along the way, and assisted in a surgical procedure. After a bit of malpractice, the entire staff perished, and I found the entrance to Shar's temple, where we now need to pass Lady Shar's 3 trials and collect the 4 Umbral gems. The first trial is stealth. If these patrolling shadows see me, I get teleported back to the beginning, but instead of stealthing past the shadows, I killed them, ran through to the end, and collected the first gem. This one wasn't too bad. The second trial is combat. We fight a mirrored version of our own team, a classic RPG move. Fortunately for me, they don't have ammunition to make their builds viable, and they easily give up the second gem. Test number 3 is an invisible maze. This maze is bullshit. Whoever designed this garbage trial deserves to go back to gamer school. Look, no one likes mazes that are the same every time we play through the game. But since I've always cheesed this stupid maze by jumping to the end, I didn't actually know how to do it. I'm not just salty because I got a game over here and lost over an hour of progress because I had no saves, but that is part of it. With patience, I eventually did it, worked my way through the maze, and acquired the gem. With the trials passed, we cleared out the nearby library to reach level 8 and negotiated with the Hellspawn for the final Umbral gem. The negotiations broke down afterwards though, and Withers had my back. With all 4 gems in our possession, it was time to go deal with Balthazar, or so I thought. Turns out that the fight at the door is insanely hard, as Throw can't hit these Umbral portals. The Umbral portals will continuously spawn additional enemies throughout the fight. In total, 25 enemies appeared in this one battle, and yes, I counted. I've never done the fight without killing the portals before, and it was an extremely close call, with just one party member surviving at the end with a room full of items all over the place. If you want to give yourself a real challenge on your next playthrough, try this fight while leaving every portal alive. It is brutal. Balthazar was a joke in comparison. I just built a wall of candles to block his zombies and I threw spears over them. With the fat necroman out of the way, it was time to enter the Night Song's prison. Normally, this step of the game poses no challenge whatsoever. You just jump along 8 platforms until you reach the end of the map. But due to the obvious fact that I can't use jump, we need to rely on throw. Using throw, we can reposition 3 characters from the first platform to the second platform, but then this character has no way down. Since they would be stuck up here forever, we're forced to kill our dwarf ally. The distance between the second platform and the third one is very small, so if we use throw here, we basically wasted a character. So I came up with a strategy. Using a crate in our inventory, we can place the crate right on the edge of the cliff, walk on top of the crate, and then pick it back up. This lets us fall down to the third platform, then just repeat this for each character. From the third platform, we can use throw to bypass the fourth platform and land directly on the fifth. Once again, this causes one character to be stuck, this time out of range to be killed by the others, so he has to burn himself alive. The 2 remaining members sprint along the 5th platform until they reach the edge, and no matter where I aim, throwing from here cannot reach the 8th and final platform. It's also too far away to reach the platform next to it and use the crate trick again to fall down. Using Lae'zel, I can throw Shadowheart down one more level, but she has no one left to throw her. Luckily, I've got one last trick up my sleeves. You can place an explosive barrel next to Lae'zel, and then get her to throw an alchemist's fire to ignite the barrel. The explosion knocks her back, allowing her to reach the same level that Shadowheart's on. You'd think that we're done here, right? But no, an invisible wall actually blocked the path to the final platform. Using a tower of crates, we can get enough height to toss Shadowheart over the invisible wall where she's in range to kill Lae'zel. And since Shadowheart has made it to the end, she can deal with the Night Song. If the Night Song is left alive, then this challenge is a failure, because in a later fight, the Night Song will require the help action to be used on her to progress the game. Shadowheart is the key. She She is the only companion capable of killing the Night Song and avoiding that future failure. With no one left to talk her out of it, Shadowheart fulfills her destiny and finishes off the Night Song. With this ridiculous puzzle solved, we spoke with Withers to revive our team and get them out of the prison. Fully revived, the party returned to Moonrise Towers, faced no resistance, and met Ketheric Thorm atop the roof. This fight only requires dropping him to half health, where he runs away into the colony below. We took pursuit to challenge him once more. Using a box tower, we sniped all of his allies and kept Ketheric blinded by tossing food into his eyes, which somehow makes him do nothing. After his transformation, the food strategy remained viable, and the Bone Man went down without putting up much of a fight. We collected his netherstone and proceeded up the road to Baldur's Gate. Along the way, we got ambushed by Githyanki, who we killed, but clearly these guys don't get the message because they immediately ambushed us again in our sleep. Instead of jumping past the enemies like I normally do, we threw Bomb Trady over their heads and into the portal, is what I wrote in the script. What actually happened was a bit more dramatic, as I'd forgotten my lesson from the tutorial, knocked myself prone, and nearly caused the game over. But with one turn left, we did make it inside. Our reward for escaping death, another jumping puzzle. This one wasn't as tricky to solve at least, as there's just 4 platforms. But it still leaves our leader Bomb all alone. Knowing there's a fight here, I threw down a speed potion and an invisibility potion to min-max it. We witnessed a Mind Flayer who appears to also be attempting the throw-only challenge, so of course I hopped in to take his side. The 2 Githyanki on the surface level were thrown off of the cliff and fell directly down into space, well known for its high gravitational pull. The other 2 Githyanki stood upon magical anti-gravity space rocks, but would be barraged down by my daggers. And with 3 FPS, the last Gith fell to my blade. Attempts to resist the Emperor's offer to evolve failed, rotting our eyes and teeth. I considered save scumming, but that's a lot of effort. So I accepted this new uglier form. After clicking the portal to return to camp, I was relieved to see it ported my whole party, saving me 600 gold. Sorry Withers. The start of Act 3 had me filled with excitement, because right away I gained access to the 2 best thrown weapons in the game. The Dwarven Thrower can be purchased from Ferg Droger in the refugee camp, and it gives dwarf characters additional damage when used. The second weapon is a legendary spear. Step 1 of acquiring this, go to the circus. Step 2, get sniffed by a ghoul. And step 3, insulted by a genie. Ugly. Who isn't wrong about what he said. Then we can purchase this genie's magical ring that he's been using to cheat the wheel game, which causes us to win the game, and he rage ports us into a jungle. Inside the jungle, we fight off some dinosaurs, run to the cliff's edge, and encounter another problem. There's a massive gap between us and the exit. But more importantly than that, the weapon that I want is inside the chest. I can break it open, but I still can't reach it. And only one character can ever enter this jungle area, meaning nobody's left to throw me. So it's time to get creative. Back in the circus, this kobold sells the gloves of displacement. When worn, it causes the wearer to swap places with their target when they hit them with a thrown object. My first idea was to throw the dinosaurs that are in the jungle across to the island, but unfortunately, they're too heavy to be thrown. So it's time for plan B. I need to spawn something over there. Back in Act 1, I picked up an item called the Caravan Chest. I smashed open the Caravan Chest, and inside is an item called the Iron Flask. This Iron Flask can be thrown one time only to summon a spectator enemy. By throwing it onto the island, we now have an enemy in position. Then by throwing something at it, the spectator and I will swap places, allowing me to grab the weapon and bolt out of the portal, granting us our 3rd homing weapon and making Act 3 a lot more enjoyable. Before leaving the circus, Ronald McDonald put on a show, betrayed us, and gave us a chance to test out our new toys. Let's just say I had a good time at the circus. In a church next to the circus, we found a strange flying elephant. Not knowing what it was, we shot first and asked questions later, causing a man to show up and offer us a job as professional killers. Our task? Kill 2 people on a list of Asterian's fangirls, or something like that. I didn't actually read the list. We accepted the mission, pissed off some guards, and hit level 9. Climbing into a balcony proved much more difficult than I imagined, but I got there in the end. After fully exploring the area, we convinced the remaining guards to let us into Baldur's Gate's keep, and walked directly through to a wine party in the lower city, where we decided the best way to prevent death would be by killing a murderer. I thought I'd min-max by throwing a speed potion to pre-buff for this fight, but 2 members of the anti-fun police ran through and stole it, forcing me to cheese it in another way. My hammers had weird texture bugs when they hit the target, but in the end, this dwarf perished before he could flee the battle. Next, we looted his handbag, a literal bag full of hands. Nice joke, Larian. These hands are the proof that we need to convince others that we are legit killers. So we took them to go tell Ball how good we are at being bad. He believed us, and turns out these guys also hate flying elephants. We were invited to bathe in a pool of blood, which appeared to be more of a kiddie pool based on its depth. You'd think a cult like this could at least afford an average sized pool. The cult's leader gifted us the Amulet of Baal, and the title, Unholy Assassin. Feeling assassiny, we traveled to meet the man with a quick, easy smile himself, Gortash. To progress the game, we need Gortash's Netherstone, and to be honest, we could easily just form an alliance to acquire his Netherstone and avoid killing him altogether, but that's kind of boring. And since I read comments that disliked that I always exploit in my videos, here's another one just for you. We're gonna kidnap Gortash. By using the throw action on Gortash and immediately cancelling it, we can pick up Gortash. This allows us to carry him away from all of his guards to a bridge, where we can just toss him off like the trash he is, leaving his Netherstone behind for the taking. After 25 quest pop-ups, we reached level 10 and received a message from the Elder Brain. I believe it told me to kill Lauren, but Lauren died in Act 1. Stupid brain. Ignoring the brain, we helped Shadowheart take over a cult of Shar. She committed a few sins, we sold our memories to Amir in exchange for just 2 strength, and said our goodbyes to Shadowheart's simps. Nearby we found a bard tied to a chair. Useless fact, you can use the throw action and it frees him without casting the help action. Anyways, no more distractions. It's time to go deal with Orin and her death cult. Dropping into the sewers was a little more challenging than usual, but our companion cubes had our back. Using the Amulet of Ball, we tried to open the door, but the game took over 2 minutes to load the cutscene of the door opening. Frankly, I'm just surprised it opened at all. With the door boss defeated, it was clear where the murder cult's pool budget went. We made our way down the stairs to confront Orin. Orin gave a long, boring speech, transformed into a Zergling, and was put down before she even got a turn. Turns out, without any other spells, throwing builds are still pretty broken. Her death brought us to level 11, and we chucked her remaining guards into a conveniently placed nearby pit. Having collected the final Netherstone, we bought some fireworks to celebrate, and Lae'zel and I enjoyed a beautiful sunrise together. Well rested, we took the path and stole another boat. Somehow Shadowheart swam with us to the Elder Brain, even though 20 hours ago she claimed she can't swim. You want to explain that one, Larian? Back on shore, some intellect devourers ambushed us, and this is where I learned that Orin's dagger is also a returning weapon. Just in time for the last hour of the game, I no longer need to collect hundreds of daggers after every battle. Better late than never, I suppose. Since I'm a hoarder, my inventory was too heavy for my characters to be thrown across the bridge. Rather than actually sort that mess, I used the gloves of displacement to get them across, until I had enough characters there to reach the brain. We failed 7 rolls in a row when attempting to dominate the brain, which only made it angrier, causing it to rise up and attack Baldur's Gate. Knowing we can't jump, the Emperor took us back to the astral plane, where I had to once again throw my characters to traverse the path. The Emperor assimilated Orpheus and took us back to the city. The Skithyanki asked what we did with their leader, but when the Emperor explained that he just drank his brain like a smoothie, they understandably attacked us. We quickly eliminated the threat, healed up, and threw invisibility potions to skip the biggest slog of a fight in the game, just because it's not fun. I also wanted to use invisibility to skip the entire gauntlet, but that was kind of impossible as there's a ledge that requires throw to reach. It was also pretty high, so only one of my characters was able to be thrown up there, and he soloed his way through the enemies while dodging bombardments to reach the end of the gauntlet. Upon reaching the end, the remaining party was teleported there. Since my party was not max level, I used the last of our invisibility potions to pre-buff before the fight, allowing us to get into position to initiate combat. I wanted to build a box tower before the fight, but I didn't know that that would break my invisibility. That still didn't stop me. I built it during the fight and climbed to the top, and started picking enemies off, as the extra height increases the throwing damage dealt. Using throw, we tried to pick off as many mind flayers as we could to prevent them from stunning the Emperor. This is where another slight problem pops up. You need to channel the Emperor's spell to finish the game. Now, when I laid out the rules, I did say my 4 main characters, specifically because of this. You're forced to use this spell to complete the game. The Emperor is not one of my main characters. By my rules, this is okay, and realistically, it's not a spell that does anything except for progress the story anyways. The Emperor started channeling the spell, and the rest of my team had one more turn to defend him against the Brain's soldiers, which went pretty smoothly. The portal opened and we flooded into the Brain's inner sanctum, where we will now have 5 turns to finish it off or we lose the game. The Brain has a bit of a strange mechanic though. It's almost impossible to hit when you throw weapons at it. Even if you aim right at the Brain, they usually don't do anything. But because I'm a bit of a turbo nerd, I knew about this mechanic and I came prepared. Earlier when I said I was buying fireworks to celebrate, that was only partially true. Fireworks are the most easily obtained explosive weapon in the game and can be thrown to deal damage. The best part is they don't need to directly hit the target to hurt them. It just needs to land nearby, but their damage is kind of weak, meaning you need to bring a lot of fireworks if you're going to use them for battles. With the damage problem solved, the Brain only has one real mechanic left. During the fight, the Brain keeps destroying platforms in the room. Some of these platforms have no ladders to get down from, so I used the box trick from earlier to get my team off of the platforms which were marked for detonation. Using explosives, we kept whittling down the Brain's health pool, and after a few minutes, the Brain fell to our explosive barrage. I let the Emperor kill the Brain, and I proved you can beat Baldur's Gate 3 using only throw. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you're new here, check out this other video where I took on the challenge to beat Baldur's Gate 3 without killing anything. And as always, thanks for watching. Have yourself a wonderful day. Proxy out.
Should have learned to bloody swim.